Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the CLUELESS podcast. Episode 10 is finally here.
We made
before we
it.
get to the present, we have to address the past, and we finally get to shout out one of our loyal listeners for
followers.
following us on the Spotify. Eric
Since day one.
Marino _1. Shout out to you. If you see him in person, he also likes to go by the name of Rocco Taco per request. So keep that in mind. You know the deal. You can find us on all social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. For episode 10, we finally have got a guest. Today, we welcome on former offensive lineman for Boise State, current contractor who also works with the Army. He also has a master's degree in sport and performance psychology. So for all of you athletes, including myself, your questions will be answered right here, right now. Archie Lewis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good today, man. Just enjoying my day. How y'all doing?
I'm really
Doing
cool.
good.
We're doing pretty
I got
good.
nothing to.
While we're on the topic of sports and life, how do you balance like a sports lifestyle?
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that's kind of difficult. So, I mean, when I was in high school, playing high school football, it was a little bit difficult because you have that whole idea of like you have school and then you have life and you have your social life and then you have sport, right? But I feel like nowadays, when it comes to sport is becoming so much more of a business in high school to where people are doing like camps, they're doing trainings, they're with X, Y, and Z trainer, like legit from ninth grade till 12th. So I feel like that whole aspect of balance is totally different now than what it was back then. But for me, it was really just, it was football and it was school. I mean, there was no real other thing. You had a little bit like the friend aspect, but I mean, your friends play with you on the team. So you're always getting that friend hanging out with your buddies and stuff. So you typically get that.
Yeah.
It's just, I know nowadays it's figuring out how to balance school when you really are just trying to focus on getting to the next level or making sure you're becoming the best athlete, et cetera. So.
Right. Yeah, and I've noticed like a lot of the balance, it's about focus. Like, so about a month ago, I played basketball. Our season started up, and which is great because like COVID restrictions here where we live and everything, and it's like been tough. I noticed not to balance like the time management because like we have this podcast and I have working at school, keeping my grades up, and trying to help the team win. Like keeping focus in the games and in practices to play the best that I can play is really tough. What are some things when you were a student athlete? Like what are some things that you would do to keep like your focus up? Like.
So for me personally, I had things that I didn't know were sports psychology concepts until I got into sports psychology. So the whole idea of having like mental cues for yourself for those moments when you feel yourself getting distracted and your attention starts to wander. Because I mean, y'all could probably attest to it. I mean, once your attention gets off of the sport for like a little bit, let's say you're playing a game and you start thinking about, man, dinner sounds really good. I wonder what I'm having, or like, oh man, I got a test tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like your whole idea of what you need to be doing gets shoved away to the side, right? So when I was in college, I had specific cues for myself that I would go about telling myself. I had a routine that I would do every single time for the game to make sure that I was prepped and ready to go. But when my attention started to wander, like during the game, I always had a cue that I would either tell myself or something that I would do. So like I would always pat the side of my leg, like pat my hip, or I would sit there and tell myself, all right, next rep, let's go. Or like I had like specific cues that I would say and or do to get myself back on the task at hand. Because once your attention starts to wander, that's when you get in trouble in the game.
Yeah, that's very true. I always had a problem with that, or I still have a problem with that. I have a lot of schoolwork right now, but like I also have a lot of hockey. So every time like during practice or a game, I think of like homework that's due or a test that's due, and my whole play style changes.
That's interesting because like that's so relatable because like about a week ago we had our first game and I of course, because again, COVID restrictions, it's all a spiral. No gyms to practice in, so a little bit of rust. I didn't get like a starting job this year, like on my team. So we played like a pretty bad team, and by the time that the bench players got in the game, like including myself, we were already up by 30 points. The team was terrible. So, and I wanted, to show my coach what I could do mid-game, just being a productive player, helping the team continue to win. But once we were up, for some reason, I knew I was already out of it. I was already just like thinking about other things. I couldn't get myself in the game. I was like, what am I even playing for? Because we're already losing. It's just, yeah, it's tough to find that focus, and like focus is really important. And I have a question. It's kind of personal. So like during the off season, I'm sure like when you were playing football, did you like you practiced a lot? Like off season is your time to put your head down, like work. Yeah. Yeah. And so I noticed that I do that a lot. And like, I'm out there, I'm, lifting weights, keeping my cardio up, like getting shots up for basketball. And I noticed that like talent wise, I'm not really that far off from anyone on my team. Like I would say talent wise, I'm like up there. But I think the thing in games and in practices is my confidence. Like for some reason I can't get that confidence up, and like I've tried so many things, I just don't know how to get it up. And how much would you say confidence matters in the middle of a game, and what are some things that you can do to like increase confidence as an athlete?
Yeah, so personally, I think confidence is always going to be a big factor when it comes to playing at your best, because when you're playing at your best, like you feel like I'm that guy, like nobody out there can stop me, right? So like you have that mentality, like yo, like it doesn't matter who you put on me, it doesn't matter who's guarding me, like I'm gonna get this thing done. So personally, I think confidence is important. Something that my coach used to tell me at Boise State was that your confidence comes from your preparation.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's how you prepare.
Yeah,
It's making every rep as game-like as possible. It's making everything as realistic as possible, so once you get to the game, it's just second nature and you don't have to focus on a lot of the other things. But I know a big thing that can deter you from having confidence is the way you think once you're in the game, or like let's say you're waiting to hop in the game, because counterproductive thinking, it keeps you off your task at hand. Like you can't sit there and focus on playing your best if all you're thinking is like, oh man, like what if I go in there and miss this shot, or oh man, I'm gonna go out there and miss this block, get my QB sacked, or oh man, I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna miss the game-winning goal for my team. Like if you're sitting there having that mindset and you're having those counterproductive thoughts, which typically happens to everybody, like we're human, like we have counterproductive thinking, right? But having those thoughts take you off your task at hand, and if you're not able to stay focused on that task at hand, you're having those counterproductive thoughts, it's going to be hard for you to stay confident at all, So coming up with ways to battle and get rid of those counterproductive thoughts when they arise are important. And along with that, I mean, confidence comes, like I said, like what my coach told me, confidence comes from your preparation. So you making it as realistic as possible. So like if you're in the game, then like it's just second nature. Like even if I'm sitting there on like the bench, I remember my redshirt freshman year. I was redshirt freshman, walking in, I'm like 260, 70 pounds at this point, and the starting left tackle gets hurt and I have to go in and play the game. And for me being a redshirt freshman, I'm like, yo, like these some big dudes out here. This is crazy. I don't know what's going on, right? But the thing is, I was so confident from the preparation that I was doing that all I could focus on was, okay, I have this specific task, I have this, what I have to do. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was in the present moment. I was in the game, and I was ready to just go. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been taking those mental reps on the side, watching when the ones were out there, or putting in the extra film work, or doing all the extra things during the off season. So I feel like that's how you go about building that confidence, and I personally think that confidence is important when it comes to any performance.
It's like when boxing coaches say, like, trust your training. Because if you're thinking too much, then that can destroy you. But you want to stay focused. You don't want to think too much, but you got to stay focused. And
Speaking of boxing, like I always wonder how these guys like Canelo, like Garcia, like how do they like in front of these packed crowds, and they're about to go fight for their life, bro.
Yeah.
And they could get knocked out, but they stay focused and calm, and like it's crazy. Finish what you were gonna say, and then I have another question for you off that topic.
No, I was just gonna say, like, overthinking is like one of the biggest things we all probably face, right?
Overthinking, you are talking to the king of overthinking right here. I overthink.
Yeah.
that's
everything.
me. That's literally me. All the time. Every round.
See, like, thinking's good in moderation. The thing is, when it becomes something that becomes more of like a master in our lives, that's when it becomes a problem. you know, because that's when we're not actually able to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I remember I had this coach, like, and this was like the first time I played organized basketball, travel basketball, and we were running plays, and I was just like, I just don't understand this. Like, what, like, it's so many like screens we have to set, and like who's, you know, passing the ball to who, and like, and then he's like, why are you even thinking about it? Just do it. And like, at that time, I didn't understand what that meant, but now, you know, when we go, like, and run plays in practice today, just, you know, can't overthink it. Once you overthink it, that's when you know, sabotage yourself pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you do, like, speaking of like preparation, do you have you heard of like visualization before games?
Yeah. Yeah. So like we would between. Yeah, so for sports psych, we typically tie like visualization, like imagery together, even though imagery is more of like a multi-senses type deal. But when it came to games, I was always visualizing. Like my pre-performance routine legit had a portion of me standing away from everybody and just closing my eyes and visualizing, all right, this is what you
Yeah.
got to do. You're getting your mind right, you're getting your body right, you're checking and scanning everything to make sure you're ready to go out there and just play. So visualization for me was something that I utilized for my pre-performance routine, and for me it worked a lot. But I mean, it depends on person. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be great at visualizing. Some people need like cues or things they say to themselves or
Yeah.
do to get themselves like on task or focused or hyped up. So it depends on the person.
Do you visualize mid-game? No. Yeah. Yeah.
What is visualization?
The whole idea of visualization is basically like you imagining the performance, like you're viewing the performance from either a first person perspective lens, like you're actually doing it, or taking it like third person perspective where you're watching yourself do the actual task. So let's say I'm visualizing myself shooting free throws, right? I'm in a spot, my eyes are closed, they could be open as well, but you're legit just running through the mechanics of, like, in your head of everything you're supposed to be doing, whether that's your warm-up, whether that's how you dribble the ball to how you shoot. But, I mean, making it a kinesthetic form of imagery works as well. So, like, let's say you were just at the free throw line and you're just sitting there, no ball, but you're just going through the actual process of it where you're pretending you're doing your throw your ball back, you dribble 1-2, and, like, get in your follow through, practicing that whole thing. So that whole thing of like kinesthetic imagery, putting everything together and having that visualization. So once you get to the actual rep, it's like doing a rep without doing the rep. I don't know if your coaches have ever told you like get a mental rep on the sideline or watch this person and get a mental rep. I don't know if coaches.
Yeah, they've never told me that, and I wish they would more, because like I was like watching these, like, you know, there are these basketball like YouTubers that give you tips. Visualization, like visualize 10 past moments of success that you've had like in games, and then visualize like 5 moments that you're gonna have against this team. Like visualize yourself actually going against this team and, like, you know, getting a step back 3 or whatever. And you said like you have like these mental cues to like hype yourself up mid-game. That's interesting, because I've literally started, because I really need to do this, to like set reminders on my phone before practice or write stuff like on my wrist, like of like put yourself in this situation. I know Ari and Dennis, you guys will know what I'm talking about here, and I'm gonna explain this to you. So we go to summer camp together, and at the summer camp there's a big basketball game where the oldest age group plays the counselors, and it's a big deal. Like everyone gets custom jerseys, and like whoever wins, like it's a huge deal, like, you know. And this year we're gonna get to play, so I remind myself, because like I've been looking forward to this forever, just to like play basketball like against these, you know, and beat these older men in a basketball game. That's all I want to do in front of the whole camp, in front of 300 people. And so I try and, like, when we're scrimmaging in practice, I'm like, okay, it's called gardens. I'm like, okay, get into the like you're playing in gardens right now.
The
What
gardens
would you do? And
mindset.
I'm trying to motivate myself like that. Yeah. Did you watch The Last Dance? Yeah. Speaking of like someone motivating themselves, like that was insane. Like, I mean, do you think he was born
Should I
with that
watch it?
focus?
I haven't watched it.
Yeah, you should. Do you think he was like born with that focus, or do you think he like developed it? Because I don't know if this is like a psychology thing, like, but like, when you have that focus, are you born with it, or do you like develop it over time because of certain like situations you're put in?
See, I feel like it was something that was developed. I feel like with any skill, like you can be born with an innate just ability to where you're good at something, But in order to foster it and get it to where you like, in order to get it to like a Michael Jordan type status or like a LeBron James type status, like that's countless hours of effort, practice, etc. It's like going to the whole idea of having a growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
We talk about that in school.
it's the whole idea. It's the whole idea of having like a growth mindset. Like he's faced probably setbacks, etc., but he came back from it. He grew from those things. Like I don't think I just don't think it's something that's just innately just given. Like I understand like everybody has certain gifts, talents, etc., but if you go about putting forth the effort, that's where you actually see the difference from being good to being great. Like if he didn't put forth any effort to go about cultivating those skills, he wouldn't have gotten from being here to the greatest to ever do it.
I have a question. It's kind of a dumb question. Well, they say there's no dumb questions. What is sports psychology?
Okay, so sports psychology, I like to look at it as cognitive tips, tools, and tricks to get your mind, to get your body to do what it needs to do and perform at a more optimal state. It's like how the old saying goes, as the mind goes, the body follows.
Yeah.
So if you want to go about improving performance overall, I mean, one of the biggest hindrance of performance is this thing in between like your ears. Like that thing stops you from doing a lot of stuff or performing at the best of your abilities. So currently, like what I do now, I work with the military, helping them on their whole deal of sport and performance psychology, helping them with just performing at their best. So, I mean, it's a fun gig. I think sports psychology is awesome. It personally helped me out, even though I didn't realize that I was using it when I played. But, I mean, it's really dope.
Yeah, looking back, now that you have that like whole experience learning about it, what are some things that you could have like used back then, or did you actually like use everything and like without knowing about it? Like, what are some of those things?
So the thing that I wish I would have realized or known was how important your thoughts drive, like how you feel and what you actually do, and overall how that like helps and or hinders your performance. Because the way we think, I mean, and this is going back to, I can go into a whole rabbit hole, but if I was trying to go into cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like, that's its own deal. But the whole idea of like the way you think impacts, like the way you think goes about fueling specific emotions and reactions. So that's like what you do, what you don't do, what you feel, etc. And based off that, that can either determine how you perform, whether that's good or whether that's bad, or like optimal or suboptimal.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times when I played or getting ready to play or during an off season, you don't realize how many counterproductive thoughts you typically tend to have going into a performance and things like that. Like you have a bunch of just doubts and things that I wish that I knew then was how to go about combating those more efficiently and effectively like I do now. Like when I played, I for sure had things that I did. Like I had mental cues, I had a pre-performance routine, I did visualization, like I had thought stop, like the whole idea of thought stopping when you're having a counterproductive thought, like finding ways to stop it in the moment. That way you can get back present on the task at hand. Like there were things that I utilized, but I wish I had a more like fine tuning of the craft. That way I could have used it better when I was playing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, I see you trying to get out a word. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say? Were you trying to get out a word?
So psychology. Psychology is like a big part of life in general, obviously. So, in terms of psychology, what makes somebody like burn out from a sport? Like just playing too much?
I feel like that can be a lot of things. It could be like your family pushing you out of it. It could be you just losing the joy of the sport. It could be a multitude of things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like burnout's its own, like, burnout can come from just a culmination of just things adding up with stress, life, etc. So
Yeah.
oof.
So I know I've burnt out of a couple sports. I mean, I used to play baseball, but I kind of got bored of that, and then I used to play like I used to swim, and I used to play a lot of sports, but I burnt out of most of them. But hockey has always stuck with me, which is good because I really like it. Do you have any tips to prevent like burning out from something?
When it comes to the whole idea of burning out in sport, I would say making sure that you have time away from it. Like making sure you have like a set time to stay away. And I understand like a lot of times people want to get entrenched with their sport, and that's great. Like if you can manage that, then that's good. But when it comes to a point to where the sport is becoming like too much of a deal, and you can't like decipher like life in the sport, that may be a time or a moment where you need to go about taking a mental break. Because if you continuously doing something that's tiring, of course you're going to get tired doing it, right? So whether that's doing things like mindfulness, things like that, or something to just take your brain off of it, having other hobbies, it's good ways to go about preventing burnout for sure.
It's interesting because like my brother used to play baseball, and he used to love it. I mean, he wasn't the best like baseball player, but he used to love the game. And around where we live, like it's a very like athletic area. There's like a lot of talented kids in every single sport: basketball, baseball, soccer. And one of the things that just drove him away from it was maybe not having that like athletic gene that a lot of people do, and just like, you know, he got cut from his travel teams like 2 or 3 times, and you know, it sucks to see it because he loved the sport, but not being able to play it just like 3 consecutive years because he didn't make the travel team got him, you know, bummed out, and ultimately now he just doesn't play it, and it kind of sucks. And before, Dennis, you got to your thing, like going back to the Last Dance, like I think one of the things that helped him have focus was the fact that he was so competitive, like Michael Jordan. Like I don't think he really, anything he was doing, whether it was chucking coins at a wall with, you know, security guards, he was competitive in. You know, he would have his, you know, he would play poker, gamble, and play golf. You know, all those things kind of took his mind away from basketball. And I think he did love basketball, but I think he was blessed with like a gift, and there was that competition. So I feel like, you know, there's always another reason why someone falls in love with the sport. You know, whether it's like whether it's like you like the aspect of competition or the aspect of being on a team. Like, you know, I know Ryan Garcia, the boxer, like he said he was going to be one of the best baseball players. He dropped out of baseball because he couldn't stand losing when his team was responsible for it. He wanted to be responsible for every like action that went down in the event. It's, you know, it's always something different. Now, Dennis,
And boxing's just him, so that makes sense.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Dennis?
So I saw this TikTok, and it was like the most efficient way to study and learn something is to study it for 30 minutes, take a break, separate yourself, clear your mind, and then go back to it. So you're not overwhelming yourself and burning yourself out. And Jared, when you were editing the podcast, like all day, I told you to take a break, and you didn't listen to me because you're getting really stressed. So you should have taken a break.
Yo, so here on base where I work, we do a lot of academic performance as well, right? But I'm glad you said that, because the whole idea of taking breaks is important, because your mental energy is finite the same way your physical energy is finite. You don't have just a bountiful supply, right? Mm-hmm. So making sure that you take those breaks are important, because, I mean, y'all have probably had this before to where you try to study for like 2 to 3 hours straight, and then you're just dead tired, or you get to a point to where you take a break, you come back, you try to test yourself, and you're just reading over the same question 5 times, and you have no idea what you're reading at all, and you're just pissed off at the world, right? So like taking break. No, I'm glad you said that. Being able to take those breaks are important, because, like I said, mental energy is finite. You don't have a bountiful supply.
For sure. And our last guest that we had on here, Leo Flowers, he pointed that out. Like, one of the biggest challenges of being a student athlete was, like, because he played D1 football too, was not having enough energy. Once the season was over, the whole off season he couldn't do anything because he was still resting and getting that energy back for the next season. And once he said that, now I'm starting to realize that's why I'm like so tired all the time, or like, because, you know, I'm trying to balance all these things.
I'm tired,
and, like, you know,
all
you have
the
to be
time.
worried about the burnout too, which is a vital part of life that not a lot of people know about.
It's important.
No,
Facts.
for sure, take breaks. Take productive breaks.
What do you mean by that?
What can be described as what can be described as like a productive break?
Yeah.
Anything that's either going to help you recoup or keep you from using mental energy. So one thing that I stress here with soldiers is that being on your phone, like scrolling through TikTok, watching TV, you're still processing information. So you're not really taking a mental break at all. You're still processing that information. Whether you think you're doing it or not, you're still processing information. So when it comes to taking effective breaks, things like going for a walk, it could be exercising, it could be taking a nap, it could be eating some food. Anything that's going to keep you from utilizing mental energy is what you want to do for your break, or anything that's going to help you like recoup it. Because if I'm going through TikTok, even if like I'm just scrolling through, my brain is still processing every piece of information that's going on there. So I'm still utilizing mental energy, even though I think I'm not. So doing things that are, like I said, things that help you recoup, or things that help you like not use mental energy is what you want to do for your breaks.
Could just listening to music be counted as like mental activity?
Yeah, probably right.
So
Yeah, is that
we
considered
battled
using
with this one. I know there's research on this, and I'd probably have to give it a glance over again. But I believe listening to music is okay. I don't think it either helps nor hinders when it comes to the whole idea of like studying or like processing information like that. But again, I have to double check. But if I remember correctly, it's okay.
Yeah, I know certain times I can listen to music while I'm like studying or but it's only like little bits of it, like not complicated songs where they're trying to like convey a message, just like a song. Like
I can't listen
like-
to music while I'm reading something.
More chill.
yeah.
I can't. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Also, like, one of the things, like, we heard, like, looking at, like, you know, because you said taking a walk, and, like, where we live right now, there's snow outside. It's freezing cold. Like, you know, the outside gives you, like, what did he say? It's like a certain, like, horizontal, like, movement.
like
your eyes
like
are
the
moving.
trees.
Moving.
Yeah, your eyes are
And you're
moving.
not in the same spot.
Yeah. So he said to look at like
Or something like
cinematics
that.
if you can't go outside of like trees or something, like just cool. Do you know anything about manifestation? Like going back to the topic of like visualization, positive affirmation. Do you know anything about that? Because we are desperately trying to like learn more about that on the show. Like we really want to learn.
Yeah.
So like manifestation in terms of like manifesting like dreams, goals, etc.,
Yeah,
things like
goals. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, scientific wise or like research wise, I'm not going to say I know a ton about it, but when it comes to my own personal life and my life story, I know how important the whole idea of manifestation is. Me getting to Boise State was the whole thing of manifestation. Like legit, I had like posters in my room of wanting to go there. Legit, like when they were asking us where we were going to go to college my junior year, I told them Boise State, even though I had no offers, no anything from them. But legit, like it was like my sole mission to get to that specific school.
Right.
So I legit, it like basically I went about backwards planning of seeing how I can go about getting there. And a lot of luck played into it as well. But I mean, I put myself in the position, whether that was the workouts that I was doing or whether it was watching the extra film or doing all the extra stuff to make sure that I was a player that stood out. That way they didn't have a choice but to look at me once I was playing. So for me, I'm not going to say like I know the research behind it, but like I personally have lived it. So
Right. Did you
Yeah,
do like
that's really interesting. We're
did-
we're
yeah,
trying
did
to
you
learn
do-
more about that. So
Right. Did you do any like the typical methods? Because like I heard there's like different methods. Like there's one where you look at yourself in the mirror and like repeat something 10 times every morning and night. There's one where you like write something down 30 times, or do like a 3x3 something where you write the topic 3 times and then like the time, something like that. Did you do anything of that, or was it just the affirmation part? Because I know you said you didn't know like much about it scientifically.
I think it was mainly the affirmations, and then from there just putting in the work. Like that's like honestly like for y'all right now, I think like the biggest thing, like it's great to have the whole thing of, oh man, like I'm saying these affirmations and all this stuff is great, but if you're not really putting in the work, then what's the point of having the affirmations? So like one thing that I would stress to like anybody that's like younger or is in college or like in general, is put the work behind the actual affirmations, because words mean nothing if you don't have action backing them.
One of the goals that I wrote down for myself for this season was to be a team captain, and I don't think they're actually doing that this season because they have like I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. They're lenient with like COVID, and they're not taking it as seriously, and they don't want like kids to feel like one's on top of the other. I don't know, but like that was one of the goals that I wrote down. And I the first day I realized I go in because I didn't see anyone play. I thought everyone was kind of on like my same level in terms of rustiness and like being prepared, and I hadn't I wasn't able to like get into a gym for the last 2 months because there's been snow in my driveway. And so I wanted to be like the team captain, and I realized like early on, because I'm like searching my mind through like ways like what is the definition, like how do you be a leader? And I realized that leading is coming from confidence. When you're doing something to the you want to lead by example when you're doing something to like the best of your ability. And I feel like the fact that I couldn't do that this season, I couldn't give myself the confidence, like you said, confidence is from your work, because I wasn't able to work. It really hindered that kind of goal of mine. And on the topic of leading, like if from my like internalization, that's like how leading is done. What would you say like to someone that was trying to go for a team captain position, like, or trying to be a leader that's not maybe natural at it?
I think leading is a culmination of things. Like for me personally, like leading is me bringing my best self to work every single day. Leading is making sure I'm the first one in and the last one out. Like leading is helping out the young guys become better at the game or better at their craft. Like leading is a culmination of things that make you that guy or that leader. I think a big thing when it comes to leading, though, is the whole idea of consistency. I think that's huge, because a leader should be that person that's consistently there and consistently can bring the same version of themselves every single day when they walk in and when they leave. I don't know if y'all have ever like seen this before, like had people you've played with that some days they're up, some days they're down, some days they're up, some days they're down, and it's hard to know, okay, are you dependable? Because some days you're here and some days you're down here.
Yeah, all the time. I get players like that all the time.
So I think a big thing that a leader should always be is consistent, and somebody that just brings the best version of themselves every day. Like, I mean, you look at your best leaders, whether that's in the business world or sports, they're the same consistent person when they get in, when they leave. You look at LeBron James; he's the same consistent person. He's funny. He brings like his humor into the game. You see how hard he works. He brings up the young guys. He makes everybody around him better. Consistent from when he got in the league until now. Like that's what you see.
Earlier we were talking about like if you're like born or developed like certain with certain characteristics, and I feel like sometimes like there are still greats that aren't leaders, like Kawhi Leonard, for example. Like he's a great player. He's just the way he goes about his life.
He's
is
definitely more
vibrant.
reserved.
Yeah, he's very reserved. The way he goes about achieving his goals is in a reserved like kind of way, and I guess it's kind of something that you're developed with, but it's also something that you're born with, for sure.
No, I think it for sure can be something that's developed, and I think it's a myth to sit there and say that leadership means you're always the most vocal person on the court or on the team.
Yeah.
Like leadership's more than just being a vocal piece. Like leadership, like I said, like how you said Kawhi Leonard, he leads through his actions. Mm-hmm. Some people are great leaders by bringing the team up. Like it ebbs and flows. It's just finding what specific style of leadership you bring and what you have, and bringing that best version of yourself out to not only help out yourself, but more importantly, help the team get from point A to point Z.
Mm-hmm. Right. Speaking of like leadership styles, do you believe in like using trash talk to motivate your teammates? Because like that's something that was like a topic of controversy with The Last Dance and all that.
See, I feel like it depends on knowing your teammates, because even Michael Jordan said he knew certain guys he would have to trash talk to get them hyped up, and certain people he have to actually sit down and have conversations with, right? So I think it's that whole idea of having that awareness, that self-awareness, to not only know yourself but to know how your teammates operate, and that only comes through like having connection with them. So like if I'm gonna sit there and try to get you hyped up, Jared, I'm not gonna sit there and walk up and just start like yelling or like cussing and getting all hyped up, because if I know you don't respond well that way, then that's not gonna get you at like your optimal zone of like being where you need to be at. Like you're not gonna be able to perform at your best, right? So for me, I feel like as a leader, you need to know how your teammates like feed off energy, how they want to go about like receiving that hype up, whether they need to get hyped up or maybe you need to let them like go to the side and just get their own minds right, because everybody has their own thing. It's just a matter of you being knowledgeable as that leader to be able to provide those things when needed.
I think that's extremely important. That's also one of the things that goes into being a good coach, like knowing your players, knowing how to talk to them. And I think my thing with like the whole trash talk thing is don't say anything behind a player's back that you wouldn't say to their face. Like if you're without one of your teammates, like you never bring one of them down. You only, trash talk them to help them get better. Like there's someone on my team that like we were working on simple like jump stops and practices, and kids were like, kind of trashing him, like, how do you not get that? And I'm like, I'm kind of playing into it as well, because that's what you do when you're in high school. But I go up to the kid, I'm like, yo, this is what you got to do. You can't like take 3 steps, that's a travel. You got to come down on 2 feet, fake, and then go up with the ball, go up strong. And it's all about just being transparent and saying what you mean and feel like up front.
How did you start your podcast?
Me? So the whole idea of my podcast was to give people real life stories and lessons from individuals that have lived through life. Mainly for me, y'all are younger, so y'all might not get this until you get a little bit older. I'm not trying to sit there and act like an old head. I'm only 26. But the whole idea of being done with a sport and not knowing what to do once you're done, or the whole idea of graduating with a degree and not knowing what you want to do after life, or let's just say you joined the workforce when you were young and you've been working the same dead-end job and you just wish you can go about figuring out what you want to do in life. The whole idea of the Discovering Purpose podcast was to bring in individuals that have lived life, can share like their failures and their successes, and give a roadmap to help people reach their North Star goals. So like if I have an athlete on, then they're going to talk about their experience, how they transition out of sport, whether it's somebody from the military that's like lived through everything, how they went about figuring life out, how they got from point A to point Z. I feel like those are just lessons that anybody can go about learning from, and they could get free game and add it into their own life.
That's great. Speaking of the Discovering Purpose podcast, tell the people where they can find you if anyone wants to go listen. I listened to a little bit of an episode. Like your topics of conversation like are awesome there. Like I strongly encourage you guys to listen. Like it's good insight. So tell people where you can be found.
You can check it out on on Apple Music, on Spotify. I'm getting ready to put up the YouTube channel, but
Nice.
the whole thing's under Discovering Purpose podcast. So look that up. You'll see it right there.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, go check them out, guys.
And you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Clueless Show, and on Facebook at clueless.show. So go give us a follow.
We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at The Clueless Show, and on YouTube we're just Clueless.
All right. So looks like this is the perfect time to end because my internet quality is kind of lagging out right now. But anyways,
Yeah, you're lagging.
Archie,
Yeah.
man, we thank you so much for coming on. This was a great episode.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Remember to DM us proof that you've
Yeah.
subscribed to us on Apple Podcasts
Yeah,
so we can give you a
DM us
shout
the
out.
proof, comment I subscribed. Once you subscribe, episode 10, we did it. We made it to double digits. I got to bounce.
Let's
Ari's
go.
got to bounce. So we will see you guys next week for episode 11. Peace out. All right.
Alrighty, y'all. Peace.